Now the session layer, I find that a lot of people don't fully understand the session layer and just kind of memorize the canned definition. And when I say canned definition, that means that you'll need to know the canned definition for the exam, and that's what you would see in literature. So the canned definition of the session layer is setup, maintenance, and teardown of communication. But what is the session layer really doing? This is where you have a client and a server component that will communicate to each other. So the client-server architecture, you have some little piece of an application, you have a big piece of application, which is a server part, and I don't mean hardware, I mean the software server part. And for them to be able to communicate, the client to the server, they have to have a session layer protocol. So that that's how the server keeps track of what this client has already done. It keeps basically state on authentication at that layer, transmission at that layer. So a lot of people get like the session layer and the transport layer mixed up because they sound same. They sound pretty much the same. If you just say it sets up a communication, maintains it, and tears it down, it sounds like, well, that's the same as the transport. But the session layer protocol is not always used. It's only with a client-server model. So if you are writing me an email, that's not necessarily going to go to a server. So you won't even have a session layer protocol involved with the data encapsulation of that data as it goes down to your network stack. So I've had people who, in my classes over the years, who've had a hard time of actually grasping session protocols, especially SQL. I've had people kind of push back on me saying, no, SQL is it's an application, it's a program, and it can't work at the session layer. But SQL is an actual program, a database program, but since it's working on a client-server model, it does have a session layer, and unfortunately it's called a SQL client, which is what confuses some people. So that's only used in when there needs to be some type of remote communication, like a remote procedure call for the server to do the processing. Now, in a client-server model, the client will be doing a small amount of processing, and then when it needs a larger amount of processing or more data, that's when the call goes over to the server portion. The server portion does the horsework and adds whatever data that's being requested, and it's sent back to the client portion. And this happens all the time. We just don't necessarily know it because it works in the background.